Dr. Vaishali, why do people actually go in for self-medication?
The self-medication question you've asked is a very important question and very relevant, because it's because of the social media. The social media, everyone is into social media these days, and a lot of panic. People do self-medication in a response to panic mode. उसने वो कह दिया है, वो ले लेते हैं, ये symptoms आ गए हैं, ये ले लेते हैं, that kind of, but they don't realize this. By doing self-medication and not taking consultation from the doctor or proper healthcare person, they're doing themselves more harm. It leads to more of resistance. The symptoms are delayed, they're masked by self-medication, and it leads to a worsening of the condition of the patient. Inappropriate doses of medicines taken inappropriately for the inappropriate time lead to more harm to the patient than do benefit. Yes, it is cheaper, but WhatsApp knowledge is not all about. You should consult a healthcare professional if you are facing any symptoms, and without consulting, you shouldn't self-medicate yourself.
Do you see cases, have you dealt with cases of self-medication where you have seen some complications?
Oh yes, we have.
What are the complications that you have seen?
See, they take the doses, the medicines in not the prescribed doses. They just, it's like what do you say? It's like a small miniature dose of the medicines they are taking, and they are in the pseudo thing that they are taking the treatment, but they're doing themselves more harm. And eventually, when you give the medicine, the body develops resistance. There's things called antimicrobial resistance, which obviously will affect. And we've seen people starting steroids from day one. It's there in the periphery. So steroids are not to be given from day one. They are to be, they have to be started of the 5th or the 6th day of the illness. And indiscriminate use of steroids, in the wrong thing, we've landed up with mucormycosis also.
So Dr. Sonia, two things specifically people would like to know, our viewers and everybody here. One is the hospitals, as the governments, the hospital were also caught totally unaware. They were also in a shock. They never realized that this sort of grave situation will come. So why was that, and what did hospitals like you do to cope over it? And second is, what is the future preparation you feel which should be done by hospitals like you or other hospitals and healthcare providers?
The situation, I think every doctor over here will agree, never have we ever seen such a situation where we have been so helpless as healthcare providers. I think standing there with the basic need of giving oxygen in a pandemic, which still I think nobody really understands. I think this is one infection people have still not been able to wrap around their head, that how it works. Yes, we have treatments, yes, we have all these protocols and everything in place, but what actually works and what doesn't work, becomes the question. So I think when the oxygen crisis came forth, there were 2-3 things. I think a lot of our panels have already, or our doctors have already mentioned, it was the sheer number and the speed with which, the peak with which the cases rose, that nobody was prepared. Everybody knew at some point that fear was there, a second wave will come. But at the same time, because of the last wave, which wasn't as severe, which wasn't, with such high numbers, with the maximum cases, we were at 97,000 in the country. Somewhere there was a little bit of a lax as well, that even if the second wave comes, it's not going to be as bad. And nobody thought it will be as severe. Nobody thought that this double mutant will come forward. Before, the difference was if one family member had it, maybe if out of family of 10, 30-40% will get it. But at this time it was, if one family member has it, 9 out of the 10 people are going to test positive, out of which at least 2 are going to be quite sick, where they'll need hospitalization. So I think that was the difference of the sheer numbers. I think nobody was prepared that this is what will happen. So when all of a sudden we were at our peak, coming to your second question, what can hospitals do? Because now, yes, the situation is better. Definitely, I can understand the petition being withdrawn now, because now things are more organized. but the cases have also decreased. There are approximately 10,000 oxygen beds right now available across Delhi, which weren't available before. Now, if the third wave comes on board, and God forbid, if it is as severe or even worse, are we going to be prepared? I think hospitals and everybody will have to come on board and look into the options of having their own plants.
Where are we, Dr. Harsh Mahajan, where are we as far as COVID 2.0? Have we crossed the peak? Are we on the decline, or are we still expecting some surprises?
As in the first wave, similarly in the second wave, it started more from Mumbai and Maharashtra, which came in first along with Kerala. And that's what happened in the second wave as well. And then it shifted to Delhi, the north, the surrounding states. And after having seen the peak here, the cases are declining. Delhi is just 3,000 plus cases, nearly from 30,000. And about 19 states of the country are seeing a decline. Whereas in some of the northeastern states, there is an incline still happening, as well as in some of the southern states, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and in Andhra Pradesh, we are seeing that there is still a upswing that is going on. I would feel that the worst of the second wave is behind us, and we have to be very vigilant as to when we open up again, that we don't end up with the cases going up. So COVID appropriate behavior has to be followed, and now it has been brought out very clearly that it's an airborne infection, and so all the precautions needed to prevent against that have to be taken, and the most important is the mask and double masking, which we've been advocating for nearly 2 months now, because the mask actually protects against any kind of be it droplet infection, be it airborne infection, and also any kind of mutation that might have occurred. Furthermore, if an elder in the family falls sick, then it's one of the younger lot who's taking him around the hospitals. And this newer mutant variant, we know, is much more infective. And probably that's why we are seeing the younger lot getting infected.
So I will quickly come on to one of the other important aspect of this session, that is oxygen crisis. And we have with us Mr. Sudhir Mishra, an eminent lawyer who has been fighting for oxygen related issues for various hospitals and representing them in court. So Mr. Sudhir Mishra, over to you, sir.
For last 45 days, we have lived a very different life. I would say that Dr. Sonia is quite witness to that, because I was troubling her all the time for data and other stuff when we were going to the courts. From 4th of April, virtually till yesterday, when we finally withdrew the oxygen petition from Delhi High Court, when the court asked us that, are you satisfied? Are you getting enough oxygen in your hospitals, the hospitals which I was representing? And I had to withdraw the petition yesterday with satisfaction. But what we saw, we are talking about the COVID, we are talking about the crisis, the kind of deaths we have seen, the kind of infection we have seen. For me, as a lawyer, this was a defining moment. Maybe after 80s, when we fought for environment and climate issues in this country, this was the first time in last 7-8 years when judiciary came in this kind of momentum. And I'm not talking about Delhi High Court alone, Dr. Sudeep. I'm talking about the entire country, because there were almost 7 or 8 high courts. I was personally directly in touch with the local lawyers. Somebody's fighting medicine against black marketing. In fact, the oxygen concentrator matter which happened in Delhi, and initial 2-3 people got bail, was not the case in some other states. People got arrested and they had to be interrogated quite in detail. And we are already preparing our entire legal plan accordingly. We are also doing petitions, and we are going to take help of Heal Foundation, that how we get the amendments done in the Essential Commodities Act, and that too timely, so that nobody can say, oh, oxygen concentrator hum to bech sakte hain. So this is what is the background. I'll say I'm very keen to hear Dr. Sonia, how she was almost at the verge of few times that she wanted to go to the court, and then she realized that somehow she was managing, so she just I said, okay, we'll get the common order, everybody will get benefit out of it. But what a fight. And what doctors have shown to us, and we learn from them on a daily basis, that they never give up. They never give up. Even when we were writing papers of consent forms, which were thankfully not used in case of my hospitals, but I saw it from very close that Sandeep, and you know my journey as a healthcare lawyer for 10 years now. I always thought, and I have never taken a matter of a patient, maybe God was kind, I have always been appearing for AHPI or health sector companies. And today I feel that at least this country should respect its doctors now.